Hey everybody, before we start the show, I just wanted to let you know that DSPN is having a panel at Gen Con. So if you are going to Gen Con, go to the Gen Con event finder, search for the DSPN Q&A panel on Saturday at 5 p.m. You can meet myself, Rudy Basso, members of Venture Maidens, Dames and Dragons, and some other awesome guests who will be there floating around. Check it out. We will be giving prizes for people who ask questions, and we'll be revealing the location of our secret after hangout. So if you want to come hang with us at Gen Con, head on over and go get your free ticket to the DSPN panel. This is Tabletop Babble. I'm James Introcaso. Today on the show, I'm talking with Gregg, Mike, and Ian about the cost of public play. This is a really, really great conversation with people who are super smart about organized play. I'm very, very excited to share it with you. Gregg brought it up as a great topic, and I think we are going to cover some amazing ground. So let's jump right into it. Should you pay to play? All right, everybody, now I'm here with three awesome people. We are going to be talking about the cost of public play. But before we get into that topic, let's go around the table. And why don't you tell me who you are and what you do in the world of tabletop role-playing games? Gregg, you brought this topic, so why don't we start with you?
Thank you, James. Well, my name is Gregg, and I am one of the co-organizers of the Orange, Connecticut Tabletop RPG Meetup. And we're a public group, and we have about 70 members total. And weekly, we roughly have 24 who meet in order to play Dungeons and Dragons, and hopefully in the future, other role-playing games.
Well, it's awesome to have you here, and thanks for bringing this topic to us. Mike, how about you? Who are you, and what do you do in the world of tabletop role-playing games?
I've been a full-time freelance game designer for 5 years now.
Whoa.
It's terrifying to say.
You're still alive.
Yeah, right? Like, my head's still above water, so all right. I've done a lot of convention work. I am the editor for the Ian Insider Patreon. I'm a columnist on Ian World. And I make role-playing game settings that other people publish for me. You can find it at MikeMyler.com. And I do fun stuff that I can't sell on MikeMyler.com, like Muppets and D&D 5e, for instance.
Those are super, super fun, by the way. I was so excited when I saw that image come out that you were going to start making Muppets in D&D 5e.
I'm going to be doing a Roll20 convention game that is definitely going to be the streets, so, wait for it.
Yes.
It's going to be amazing.
Yes, I cannot wait. And Ian, this is I believe your first time on Tabletop Babble, right? Who are you and what do you do in the world of tabletop role-playing games?
Hey, well, my name is Ian. I am a dungeon master. I am a fan of tabletop role-playing game podcasts, and I'm a supporter of, RPG creators. And so just wanted to say thank you, James, for letting me come on the show. And thank you to Gregg for providing this awesome topic. And for Mike for doing everything that you do for 5 years of freelance work. That's awesome.
Well, thank you for coming on. We're really, really excited to have you and everybody else on the panel here. This is really fun for me, Ian, because I know you from Twitter, and it's cool to finally speak to you. I know we're not in person, but we're in digital person now, which is great. So let's dive into it. There's a lot of different ways people go about doing public play. Sometimes we charge, there are stores that charge for seats at a weekly Adventurers League game. Conventions charge when you sit at the table, and that charge is usually in addition to buying your badge to get into a convention, that kind of thing. Some places don't charge at all. Some conventions, it's just a one-time sort of badge fee, and then you get to sit down at the table. Usually if it's a smaller convention, you don't then have to also pay for your games. I see a lot of debate about this. We also talk now about there's sites where you can advertise yourself as a paid game master, right? We hear about people doing this. So I thought we could talk about this, about how sort of we feel when we're charged for this kind of thing. Gregg, you and I started talking about this years ago, actually, and we thought it would be a good podcast topic. And then I got busy and I forgot, and you reminded me, and I'm really glad we're here now talking about it. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience with this, with running games and charging people to play?
Sure, sure. I think this is a great topic for now because it seems like even in the last couple of years since I originally brought it up, that it's just gotten even more interest, I think, with the way that gaming is going. The way I originally came to this topic was a couple of years ago. I used to play Adventurers League publicly out of game stores, and one of the game stores failed. So then we actually moved to another gaming store, and then that one started to fail. So the group that I was with decided that we'd kind of had enough of moving from place to place and not really knowing what was going to happen. So we decided to take matters into our own hands and see if we could just do it ourselves. So fortunately, one of the members, they had a relative, their mother, who was actually one of the people that was part of this church. And the church actually allowed people to be able to use their space. So we approached them and they said, yeah, no problem with that. The one caveat being was that there was actually a charge in order to be able to use the space. So originally I thought that that might be a deterrent to our current membership, but in the end, and as the years have gone on, it really hasn't been much of a problem at all. We've actually grown as we continue to play role-playing games, and we've actually been able to drop the price. So fortunately, I think that our price has become quite reasonable. Right now, we're at $2 in order to be able to play every Tuesday night. We try to keep it as low as possible because there are other gaming spaces in the area that usually charge about $5 for people to be able to play. So I like to be able to come in a little bit lower in order to be able to encourage people to come to us and play.
There you go. Nice. You're lowballing those other places.
That's right. Well, I mean, fortunately, we don't have the kind of overhead they do. It's really just a donation to the church, and we're not paying anybody in order to be able to run a game. And we have no overhead at all. So we're able to do that as long as we can keep our numbers up.
Sure. It's a fee for the space, right? Movies are more expensive these days, much more expensive than $2.
It's really a ridiculous, bargain for your money. And frankly, a lot of the tales that we tell may be, in fact, better than some of those stories that you get in the movies. I'd like to at least think so.
Yeah, that's a great point. Mike, what about you? How do you feel about, sort of paying to play?
Well, I'm of a couple different minds. So first of all, I'm like $5. What? Because my friendly local game store is Game Masters on Babcock Boulevard in Pittsburgh. If you're in the Pittsburgh region, go there. It's great. Guy who runs it named Blind Phil. He is not as blind. He's going to make you think he is, but he's great. He only charges $2 a table, or a person per table. You get into a lottery where you'll get like a free product or a huge discount or like store credit, and he does lottery once a month. So like that, there's no barrier there. Everyone's down to pay $2 for that, right? Like you pay $2 for the ticket anyway, right? And then you sit down, and he makes his money on drinks and snacks and like people in there buying books. So $5 is definitely too much. That's ridiculous. And then if you're talking about at a convention, I actually prefer paid games at a convention because the game master is going to be on top of their game, right? Because they're getting something for running that game. It might be part of what pays for their hotel room, or it might just be their badge, or it could be a shirt or something. But whoever they're running that game on behalf of is going to give them something. So they're like more invested, and they won't necessarily be trying to do their own story. They're invested for different reasons. And then the people who sit down to play the game at the convention are more likely to be serious and like there to game. And every game I've run at a convention has gone super smooth. It's been great. Whereas, my friends, they're all about screwing around and, tangents, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll come back to the dungeon later. We don't really need this royal NPC we're supposed to save and stuff. That doesn't happen with a convention game because everyone is there with a different attitude, I would say.
Sure. Yeah. I think at a convention, it's pretty obvious to see where your money is going, right? To all of the renting of the space and to all of the organization and manpower and stuff that goes into that, right?
And you only have so many hours in that 3 or 4 day convention to game. You don't want to waste it. You don't want to waste other people's time. Like I think there's a different mindset when you're sitting down to play at a convention and you've forked over $4 for it.
Ian, what about you? How do you feel about paying to play in general?
I totally understand it. I mean, first of all, there's different places that you can play now. I mean, there's Roll20, Fantasy Grounds. But if we're just talking about like a local game store, I mean, I totally understand it. I feel so bad about Gregg's stores just keep on failing. But I mean,
it's because they're charging $5 at Sable.
Right. And well, those aren't the stores anymore. Actually, what's become popular now in my local area are these more gaming spaces. They don't actually sell product. It's really just a space to be able to game, and they have cafes where they sell food and things of that nature. And again, for us, that really just doesn't have that much interest for me. I would love for regular gaming stores to become popular again, because I would love to be able to give them my money in order to buy new D&D books and whatnot. But it seems that model is just failing around Connecticut on a regular basis as people go to Amazon and stuff for their books. So they're trying this instead to be able to entice them just for a place to play. Whether that's viable long term or not, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, how are these friendly game stores going to stay in business if people are playing, D&D, but they're not contributing or really doing anything? I mean, I know they buy drinks and everything like that, but I totally understand them charging for the space and the table. And that's really cool that you guys just took it upon yourselves, Greg, to, go at it alone and create your own little meetup.
Yeah, it's worked really well. I'm definitely very pleased with it. I'm surprised that, we continue to get more and more people. As a matter of fact, we just had it again yesterday, and we had 4 new people show up. We had a new person that came a few months ago who stepped up, and she is DMing now. So I really like being able to see the community grow, and that people just don't see $2 as much of a big deal. They see it, I guess, as an investment in making sure that the hobby continues to thrive.
Yeah. And at Mike's store with the lottery, that's a really good idea. I was also thinking of $2 isn't that much, but I was thinking maybe if they can't afford to pay the fee, maybe there would be different ways. Like if you DM a game or GM a game, like maybe they can give you like a card for like 2 free games to play as a player or something like that.
I mean, Phil's pretty loose about it if you're a regular, like I like, that's why I say when I was saying the blind thing, is like, I know that he sees that I'm carrying a soda bottle with me, like every time I walk anywhere, and I did not buy it from his store, and he never brings it up. So like, yeah,
he sounds great.
He's fantastic.
Yeah. And it is, I mean, we see everywhere stores that have awesome people closing. Thank goodness, right? Phil is still in business, which is a really, really good thing. And it sounds like he's creating like a super community atmosphere by doing those giveaways too, which is a really smart.
He does, and he does like Magic the Gathering stuff too, and like there's board game nights where I think you pay like $3 or something, and then you just like everybody sits down and plays a different thing, and you can try them all out and stuff.
Yeah. And that's that's the other thing, right? He's if he can create a D&D player, right? If the cost of entry is low enough, you can get new people coming to the store, and then they start buying products there in the store too, which is good. And Greg, in your case, like if you weren't charging people, someone else would have to cover the cost of renting that church out.
So when you say cafes, are you talking like Starbucks is charging people for their conference rooms to play D&D in?
No, it's really just like a gaming cafe. I guess I would call it a gaming cafe. It's specifically for board games and RPG games. It's just that they really don't have that much product to sell. So if you wanted to be able to buy like, the latest board game, or if you wanted to buy.
Okay, so it's like 20% game store, 80% small eatery.
Yeah, it's more like 95% eatery. And well, they're just encouraging. It's a good thing. It's kind of like what we're doing, except that they also sell food.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than nothing for sure. But
right, absolutely. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, they're pretty cool, Mike. Like they actually have like themed menus and stuff like that, like medieval food sometimes and all sorts of cool stuff to give you the atmosphere of gaming.
Well, part of the problem with game stores is that a lot of them are rooted in the traditions of Games Workshops, and that is a whole nother podcast.
It is, yes. Yeah. One I would actually love to do because Games Workshop has not had an easy time.
They've been doing some crazy stuff lately.
Greg, when you were talking, you said, more people sort of started to show up once you charged a nominal fee for people to come. Do you think that sort of the weekly investment of $2, a week, do you think that is something that helps people continue to show up to play games?
I think that it definitely helps the same way that your larger conventions, that by putting down some money. It's an investment, and you've reserved your space, and therefore you're going to be sure that you are going to do this. I think we did some other things too. We split off and we created our own meetup, whereas before we were part of an Adventurers League meetup. And there's been a few of us that are co-organizing it. So I think that we've really tried very hard to become invested in it in terms of regularly keeping attendance, regularly reminding people that, we don't do this out of the goodness of our heart, and that if we don't get money from you, that we're actually not going to be able to pay for the space. We try to engage the people on a weekly basis and send out a newsletter just talking about RPG news and things of that nature, in order to just show that, we're active. We're not just kind of sitting there and you can show up and you can sort of play a game and that's it. And I think that that's really helped us overall, is to just show that we're actively engaged in this and we care and we want to be able to continue to grow it.
That's actually pretty cool. It's one of those things. I have this debate when selling a product, giving something away for free versus charging $1 for it, right? I find that people seem to value it more if it costs $1 versus it being given away for free. Certainly you get more exposure if you're giving it away for free, but I don't know how many people actually look at it after the fact. Do you find that's the experience with products, Mike? Because I know you mentioned, like, at conventions, you think it does help people keep their seat if they pay for it, right?
Well, I don't know so much about products. I'm not direct to market. I make stuff and then, I let Legendary Games or somebody else figure out, like, okay, so what needs to happen now? I would say that, like, for this, look at extremely well done organized play. So, like, last Gen Con, I wandered into one of the ballrooms at, like, 8 o'clock at night, and it was the Pathfinder special, and they had, like, I'm not kidding, I counted this out, like 1,100 people all sitting in the same ballroom, all playing in the same contiguous game, right? And that's the results of hundreds of different Pathfinder Society seeds planted all over, the earth. And, that's how they have their own convention and stuff. Like, that all started because a bunch of people showed up to, probably a lot of them pay a small fee to play in Pathfinder Society and build their character up to the point where they're like 12th level. And the only time they can use them in Pathfinder Society now is at these specials because they have an impact and so on and so forth. But that's like a large scale example, right? Like that's Godzilla practically. In the smaller terms, you should go and try to do it at your friend local game store if that's an option, because just getting in there and even just like him being your owner, he or she being able to show like, oh yeah, sorry, we can't schedule a game for Tuesday night. The table's already taken. Like the appearance of having a full store helps them a lot too.
Yeah, and going back to your point, James, about like paying for products and versus free to play or free to download, it definitely makes a difference, at least from my end, because if I have something that's free or pay what you want, and I'll have it sitting there on my computer. But if I'm spending money to buy a module or an adventure or like monsters or something, I'm definitely going to use it. I'm like, oh man, I paid money for this. I have to use it in my game.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's I definitely think that's part of it. And do you feel the same way about paying to keep your seat?
Oh yeah, because you're investing time. Plus, if you're paying for your seat, that all the other players are paying for their seat too, and you don't want to let the party down, So you want to make sure that you're doing your best to make sure that everyone has an awesome experience at a convention.
That's interesting. The financial responsibility that you have to the other players who are also investing $2 isn't something I really thought of, but I think that makes sense, right? Like, how guilty are you going to feel if you don't show up and then they got to play with the smelly kid, right?
Don't worry, there's going to be way more babble right after this.
At the center of the great forest, on an island in the sky, the crow, deer, and wolf clans have been training 3 fearsome warriors from infancy for one purpose: to protect and serve the goddess of Estra.
So how exactly are we going to do that? Protecting the goddess, I mean.
Fran lies down.
Leica can't answer because she's too busy sniffing both your butts.
Okay, back off, Wolf Clan.
This disturbs me, but not to worry, I will instantly repress it.
These are the guardians of the goddess. Leica, the tiefling paladin who hails from the Wolf Clan.
Nobody's touching one beautiful hair on the goddess's head as long as I'm around.
Corbin, a human druid from the Crow Clan.
Human! I'm a crow!
And Fran, a water genasi wizard of the Deer Clan.
So, like, is there a way to quit this job or what?
This unlikely trio will venture forth into an unfamiliar world without knowing who can be trusted against the powerful dark force stalking the steps of their goddess and threatening the future of their world. Tune in every second Monday to Dames and Dragons, a 5th edition D&D actual play podcast. See ya then!
All right, back to the show.
I think a lot of RPG culture is based on sharing, right? Like a lot of times one person, usually the GM, buys most of the books, then shares them with their players. Certainly I remember back in like the 4E and 3.5 and playing Pathfinder and stuff, like that's always been the case. When you have that many books, it's like one person is usually buying them and you're sharing them around. People can get stuff for free. The OGL is out there. People pirate things. There's all sorts of ways to get stuff for free. And the game is, in general, like when we start out playing D&D, a lot of us start by playing in a basement with our friends somewhere when we're kids, or at college, or somebody's house during a dinner party, or whatever it is. And we're playing for free. Are these the things, do you think sort of the idea that it's based in this sharing culture and the fact that it's readily available for free are reasons why people are more resistant to paying to sit at a table? Mike, let's start with you, because you were like, $5, that's too much. I think that's too much to play at the game store.
Well, I'm a cheap bastard. So,
well, you're a game designer for a living, so yeah, I totally understand. Yeah,
being frugal, we call it. It's the frugal trait. I remember the first time I went to go register for events at Gen Con and like buy a game, and I was like, I'm not paying for this. I don't know who this is. Oh, the Warhammer 40K people. All right, I'll sit down with a Fantasy Flight Games employee and like play some Warhammer 40K. And it was awesome. And like I said, it was a different sort of experience than I was used to, especially because it was a game called Black Crusade where everybody plays evil characters. So getting your friends to sit down and play evil characters and be friendly with one another is much harder than anything else I've tried to do with an RPG. I figured it out. I have a whole chapter on game mastering evil in that one book. We're on top of it. But like, yeah, the Black Crusade game I played in convinced me that it was definitely worth it to pay $4 for essentially like $1 an hour of entertainment, right? It's cheap, and that's one of the reasons I like making RPG books, is because like dollar for dollar, pound for pound, it is the single most valuable entertainment product you can buy, just hands down. Yeah,
I mean, one core rulebook, it can be thousands of hours of entertainment easy. What do you think, Ian? Like, why do you think people are resistant, sort of, to paying sometimes?
Yeah, it is interesting. I don't know if it's like a generational thing, or because for me, like Greg or like Mike was saying, I mean, oh man, it's just, you get so many hours of entertainment for, just so little money. And I know friend of the show, Teos Abadia, he always has like great articles about like what is an adventure worth, and like how much time and effort that, well, James, because you're always working, but how much time and effort that you put into these adventures and modules, and how little or how cheap they are compared, in relativity to the time and effort that you put into it. So I don't mind at all like paying for space or supporting in, any way that I can. But yeah, I don't understand how people are resistant to it, unless it's people just resistant to change. Well, this isn't the way the game has been for 30 years. Why does it have to change now?
I think the OGL and like the original 3.0 OGL was like a brainchild of people who realized that RPG gamers are ultimately not typically the richest people in the world, and not used to paying a lot of money for their hobbies because they just don't have a lot of money to go around. And like that single document has fundamentally changed everything about the industry.
That was crazy, right? What the original OGL made everyone support D&D for a while, right? Like so many D20 products came out.
An economic boom for game stores for sure before the bust.
Yeah, definitely. Greg, what have you found anybody is resistant to paying even $2 when they come in to play, like that they're shocked?
It doesn't seem to be the case, and we are kind of like crack dealers that we actually allow them to have the first week for free. So so you just give them a taste and then they keep coming back for more. But no, I found that they really haven't been resistant. And I've found also that the majority of people really do have their own books, and they don't just have the player's handbook, that they are into Dungeons and Dragons and they buy the other core books as well. There are at least 2 people I can think of in semi-recent memory that were not like that, and they just simply drift away and they haven't been part of the group anymore. I think with so many forms of entertainment that are available now, for those folks that really want something for free, they will just move on and click on YouTube and just sit there endlessly and watch all of those thousands of hours of TV or video or whatever you want. Back when I started doing this in the early 80s, there just wasn't a lot of forms of entertainment. You could either go outside and play with your friends, you could play like Dungeons and Dragons inside, or you could go to the local arcade and play video games. Or once, Atari 2600 and the television and whatever came along, you could start playing video games at home.
With your limited teenager dollars, you could have bought a $40 NES cartridge or all 3 of the second edition A&D book, right? The red box? Yeah.
So I think that the people are just finding value in the fact that someone is organizing the games and trying the best they can in order to be able to have DMs in order to run those games, and doing the best they can to really just make sure that things go off without a hitch. So for most, that's worth just ponying up a couple of bucks. They realize that people are actually doing work and that the money isn't going to line our pockets. Believe you me, any extra money that we have, we actually don't like keeping around. So about a month or two ago, we actually threw a pizza party. It's like, yeah, we actually ended up having too much money. So maybe soon we'll be able to drop it to $1. Who knows? If we continue to have people come up. But yeah, I've found that people really are not that stingy at all with parting with a few dollars, and even parting with between $30 and $50 in order to pay for a rule book.
I wonder if it's because we're able to actually talk to the creators more now than ever, with Twitter, and like Mike Merles is always on like Twitter talking about the game, and like it's more of like a personal connection now, and you kind of, you want to support these creators who are, creating for you for the game that you love.
I agree, and I definitely do.
I think when 5th edition announced, $50 a core rulebook, I was one of the people who balked at that originally, like, oh my God, I can't, but like I've never paid so much for a rulebook. And then Mike, what you were saying about pound for pound, dollar for dollar, it's still the cheapest form of entertainment. And it's like, I love this hobby more than I love any other hobby in the world. For this one-time fee, right? You get to pay to play, and then they also, if you can't afford a $50 book, which totally makes sense for some people, there's the basic rules are being given away for free. The OGL is out there now. It's constantly on sale on Amazon, and local stores sometimes slash it down. D&D Beyond and all those places have sales.
They haven't updated the SRD in like 3-4 since they put it out.
That is true. Yeah. From a design perspective.
Yeah, so that's another different podcast.
It is. Yeah, definitely. I do think we're seeing a little bit of a cultural shift of people being okay with paying for games. And I do think part of it is that we're in touch with people. Like when I see Rob Schwalb post stuff on social media about how hard it is to be a game designer and stuff, that makes me want to buy his stuff. Also because his stuff is very good, but it's like, oh yeah, you're making some of the greatest things in the industry that are hailed left and right, and you're still struggling because this is a very niche industry and there aren't a ton of people buying products that aren't made by Wizards of the Coast, right? And even what Wizards of the Coast is selling, it's not like going off the shelves like a Marvel movie or anything like that, right?
Well, 1 in 20 Americans plays D&D or an RPG at this point.
Oh yeah, I saw that article, right?
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that. And even if you consider it skewed data, it's still probably something like 1 in 40, which is more than I would have expected. And the industry itself has grown pretty quickly as of late. I mean, the bulk of it is, I don't want to get too into it, but like the bulk of it is board games. Like, that's why I'm always purchasing board games. It's like 70% of the market. Tabletop RPGs takes up about 20% of it. So it's around, I think right now, $350 million industry.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to say like 4 years ago, it was like a $25 million industry. That is some huge growth.
Yeah, it's been fast. It was hovering around, I think, 700 when I got in, and so now it's been 5 years and doubled. So like, yeah.
That's what makes it so crazy, because people will pay like 70. What is it? How much is it for a video game now? $70?
Oh God, is it seriously $70 now?
For a new release or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then oh gosh, when I was younger, I used to like buy those like every week or so. When I first got out of high school, I had a job. I'm like, oh man, I can buy my own video games. I was spending all that money.
I got a TV so I could see the text on Street Fighter 4.
Yeah.
Because it was an HDMI, and when a TV wasn't, I was like, how do I do these moves? Son of a bitch, I have to buy a new TV.
I did the same thing for Dead Rising, the first Dead Rising video game.
Oh, yeah. Dead Rising was dope.
I couldn't read all the mission text and stuff, so I had to go buy an HD TV to do it.
But we don't have any, we don't mind spending, that amount of money for those things, but yet for some reason, when it comes to D&D or RPGs in general, it is tougher for some people, I guess. It's
a sea change that we're going to see, because the popularity of streaming has flipped everybody on their asses. There's a billboard for Critical Role. What? There's a billboard for a D&D group? Are you serious? People know that the experience can be worthwhile, whereas before it was just like, oh, that's a weird game my cousin plays, he and his friends. I don't know. I watched him do it for 20 minutes. It was weird. Now it's like, oh, professional actors are showing me that this can be really fun. Maybe this will be worth me spending $50 on this book and checking it out.
And can't you support like streamers on Twitch, like in certain ways? Absolutely. And people pay like a lot of money, I think, right?
You get bits, or you can buy, somebody explained it to me recently, you can buy bits, or you get them from watching Twitch, and then you can award the bits to people, and once people have like so many bits, they can convert it to money or something like that.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But you also you can pay $5 a month when you subscribe to a channel too, on Twitch, which is, that's $60 a year that you're given.
That's awesome. Oh yeah. Now there's things like Patreon too, to help people and game designers as well.
The Insider gets I think $12.71 a month, and we have something like, or maybe it's $12.71 subscribers. I don't know. That's not my job. My job is the words. The words are my job. I know it's a lot of people. It's like in the top 100 of Patreons or something.
I mean, it is an incredible thing to watch this industry grow, and it is, a lot of it is thanks to streaming, which is incredible too. I mean, look at how Geek and Sundry changed once Critical Role sort of got big, right? They have so much more RPG content on the channel aside from Critical Role now. So it just goes to show sort of the impact and how things are going, and that more space is needed to play these games. More people are going to be interested and not have a friend who can introduce them to it. So they need to find a place like Gregg is sort of running and be able to go there, and Gregg needs money to be able to let people play there. I
have a scary backroom staff for you. So I do this thing called Mythological Figures on Ian World, and every week or something we put up Achilles, or I think King Arthur with last week. Anyway, at one point he explained to me like the stats for Ian World and how many page views are and so on. So basically, if you get maybe 10 comments on your article on Ian World, it's like 200,000 people looked at it. I was like, are you serious? Because I did like 10 of these before he started giving me this information. And I was like, I had no idea that like millions of people looked at these articles. I balked at the number. I thought maybe, in the tens of thousands, but like, good Lord, hundreds of thousands. And it's weird too, because like so much of the RPG community is in these different little ponds, which is one of the reasons I'm not direct to market. I have these like different publishers I work with, and they all have their own little own little pond that they're drawing people in the RPG industry into. And so I get a wider reach than if I tried to make my own little pond.
Yeah, that is some crazy, crazy stuff to think that there's that many, that you need that many people to make an impact.
That's awesome that people are just, the interest is just growing and growing, that people like, I need to read about this. I need to find out about this game. That's great.
So Gregg, there is this question kind of about where does the money go, right? I think you probably know better than anyone because you organize this. Where does the money go?
Not to us, that's for sure. So we do it as a donation to the church, and 100% of the money goes towards either that expense or for the cost of the meetup. And then any money that's left over, we either put towards the next week's rent, towards the place, or the donation to the church, or the meetup. Or as I said, if we do end up having a surplus, then we'll do something nice for the members, like throw pizza every now and then, or drop the price. So hopefully we'll just continue to get more people and more DMs so that we can hopefully lower the price even more.
Wow, that's great. That's awesome that you're giving away D&D as much as you can. So I think that's going to do it for Tabletop Babble this week. But before we go, let's go around the table. Where can people find you on the internet, Gregg?
So you can either find me on Facebook. I'm at facebook.com G Lauer. I'm also on Twitter with the handle glauer42. And if you were in the Southern Connecticut area and you would like to check out our D&D group, please come and find us on Meetup. We're on meetup.com/Orange Connecticut Tabletop Gaming with hyphen between all of those words.
Awesome. That sounds great. If I am ever in Connecticut, I would love to stop by and play a game.
Oh, you should definitely come by. It would be awesome to meet you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it would be great. Mike, what about you? Where can people find you?
I am on the Facebook, Mike Myler. I'm on Twitter at MikeMyler.2, or I'm sorry, at MikeMyler2. You can just email me at mike.myler.adventures. MikeMyler.com, where I do all kinds of fun stuff. The one that's been the most popular as of late is Warhammer 40K. I found out that there's at least two different D&D Warhammer 40K hack groups in the Microsoft building in Seattle, which makes me so unbelievably joyously happy. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Right?
That's really, really fun.
Dudes in the water cooler talking about my hack. Like, what?
And Ian, where can people find you?
Hey, I'm at Twitter at Ian Werth, and then I'm on the Discord servers as Shortmanian444, or if you check out DM's Deep Dive with Mike Shea on the Don't Split the Podcast Network, I usually hang out in the Twitch chat there, Shortmanian444 as well.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you. Thank you for being such a fan of RPG podcasts, and I'd love to have you all back soon. So this was great. Thank you. Wow, that was an awesome podcast. Very, very smart dudes, very experienced here. And I want to know what you think. Go let us know what you think about paying to play. We're on Facebook and we're on Twitter at Tabletop Babble. You know, Tabletop Babble is still a new show, and you can help us grow by heading on over to iTunes and leaving us a review. Even if you're not using the iTunes app for your podcasts, it is still a great way to rate and recommend podcasts because so many other podcatcher apps are using the iTunes algorithms. And as a bonus, if you leave us a 5-star review, you can make me say anything you want, like Josh the Gent, who is my friend, my boy, JVC Parry. JVC says, TTB is bae. TTB never fails to provide interesting and engaging interviews with people in the biz. James is a great interviewer who knows how to distill out the primo info from his guests, a great source for all things tabletop. Much love, JVC Parry. By the way, JVC Parry has some amazing products on the DMs Guild that you should 100% go and check out right now. And he is a guest of this program, was one of the geniuses behind Monsters of the Guild. So go check out JVC Parry's work. People, If you want to hear more about what I'm doing in the world of game design, and oh man, are there some announcements coming up, head on over to worldbuilderblog.com and follow me on Twitter at James Introcaso, where I also give lots of DSPN awesome updates. Thank you so much for listening. Tabletop Babble is a show on the Don't Split the Podcast Network. Thanks to Rudy Basso for founding it with me. Our theme music, which you're listening to right now, was provided by Battle Bards. Don't forget that RPGs are like sex. You can find lots of examples of how to play on the internet. Hey everybody, just wanted to take a quick break here at the end to let you know this podcast is brought to you by Kobold Press and the City of Brass. The City of Brass is a new 5th edition booklet from the Warlock Patreon by Kobold Press. If you're not getting the Warlock Patreon and you're playing 5th edition D&D, you really should go check it out at patreon.com/Kobold Press. Warlock is putting out player options, new monsters, new magic items, and also like lairs, Warlock lairs, which are these mini dungeons and adventures all the time. I get so much great stuff, and it's by awesome quality designers. Well, the City of Brass is bringing the spirit of Arabian Nights to your table through the Warlock Patreon. It's a 5th edition book by Al-Qadim setting designer Jeff Grubb. Locations and adventure hooks are by Richard Pett and Richard Green. Cover art by Justine Jones. There's so many other awesome people involved in this project. Check it out. City of Brass ships at the end of June or the start of July, but you need to be a Patreon supporter to get your copy in print. Otherwise, you can pay more to get it in PDF later. So go check it out at patreon.com/Kobold Press. Thank you to Kobold Press for sponsoring this episode of Tabletop Babble.